Welcome back to Marketing Champions on Daily Ad Brief. I'm your host, Mike White, and on Marketing Champions, we're meeting with experts in the industry to talk about their tips, tricks, and trends and all the great work they're doing to make sure their clients' campaigns are the most successful they can be. Join us today from 9Dots. We have Geoffrey Klein. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks so much for having me, Mike. Good to see you.
You guys are one of obviously the best and brightest video production companies. Talk about what it takes to be successful in the video media space right now.
Well, one of the things that's really important is understanding your brand from the first step. So it's not just about how good something looks, how polished it looks, but whether it's effective or not in sharing the right message to the right audience. So it's all about starting, and I like to start from, who you're trying to reach, what's the message you're trying to share, and what's the value that you bring to them. And rather than what some companies do, which is talk about how great they are. So it's really about starting with the audience.
So when you start with the audience, do you typically do the creative brief? Are you working with someone within the organization or an outsourced ad agency? How does that process begin?
It varies, but generally we ask a lot of questions. That's how you get to the heart of what really there's that information about who they serve. And so it can be based on who their existing clients are, who their ideal clients are, and trying to figure out where those ideal clients, spend time. So that when you're targeting in terms of figuring out where the distribution of that content's going to go. But it's also really about understanding what makes that ideal client tick. What matters to them? Because unfortunately, what I like to tell my clients is nobody cares about what you can do. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, nobody cares about what you can do. People only care about what you can do for them. And so that's why the audience is the most important piece when it comes to any kind of content creation, in my opinion. And that's why even in a class I teach, I share what I call the 11th commandment: know thy audience.
So Geoffrey, what do you think the biggest change to the way people market their companies over the next 2 years is going to be?
Well, I'm a little biased, but there's going to be more and more video content. And what I think is really going to trend in ways that hasn't yet is interactive video. It's just starting to be used by some pretty effectively, where it's that kind of choose your own adventure, because we're so focused on trying to figure out what that segment of our audience is looking for. And therefore, if you can lead them down the path to what they really care about and what they're really interested in, as well as getting that interconnectivity, which I think just makes engagement that much more accessible for them, that's going to make people much more effective. And so I think you're going to see a lot more people creating content where it's not just one piece of a broadcast, which is the old way that has been going out of style for a while, but how can you really up-level connecting with people and asking and be interested in what they care about? And I think interactive video may be the answer.
So is it a chicken and an egg? Do you start with the methods and the audience, the methods of distributing the video, or do you start with the creative brief and then find the methods of distribution?
I think it's a slight combination. We do things a little bit in tandem. I think the audience is number one, but it's also about your brand, because you can't be everything to everyone. And therefore, you need to make sure, okay, this is my audience, but do I have something that's going to help them? So I do believe you start with the client. Okay, how do you help who? So it's what do you have that is helping a certain problem that a client or a customer has? And we do that through the creative brief before we even think about what we're going to create, how we're going to create it, and where it's going to go. It's really understanding the connection between what your brand has, the value it has, and how it serves that particular audience.
What excites you most about the industry you're in, and what scares you?
I think what excites me is technology. So something like interactive video is becoming easier and more accessible for people, and therefore it continues to evolve. I'm really a big fan of 3D animation, which is something we're doing more of. And thankfully, the cost of doing such is coming down because of some of the game engines and things that are being used to create it. So again, lots of those new technologies come out and you get really excited, but they're not really accessible even at a professional level for a little while. And I think that's starting to trend in a way where we're really going to have a lot of tools that are going to be able to help us with all aspects of the marketing. So that's kind of for me, the visual content piece of, well, what's the way we can really bring things to life? So 3D is really exciting me at the moment. What scares me is how slow things are on the other side. So I teach a course on social media marketing, and my students are like, well, doesn't everyone use social media marketing? And maybe they do for, their personal life, but businesses are slow, and the bigger the business, the slower they seem to move. And so even though technology may exist to help them, I think they're kind of stuck in their ways and trying something new and seeing the value of what we can do. And so that scares me, that people are going to not embrace it as quickly as I'd hope they would. I consider myself an early adopter of a lot of things, and I wish that more companies were pushing the envelope in terms of how they can innovate, how they can adopt these things to help themselves.
Why are some companies successful in content marketing and others are not?
There's not one single thing. I think one of it is being self-aware of what kind of company you are, those values you have, and that goes back to kind of establishing a very clear brand. And I make a distinction between brand and branding. Brand is who you are, what makes you different. Branding is all the ways that you show that, your logo, and those things. Having a plan, a strategy for content is a really big piece of why some are successful and those that kind of, wing it. And then consistency. Making sure that you're not just consistency in two ways. Being consistent in terms of the type and making sure your content is on brand, and then consistency in terms of sharing it. So you're not posting once and then you're posting 3 weeks later and then 3 months later. So having that strategy of when you're going to do certain things is really important. And having an ability to create that content in a consistent way. And with that also comes something that a lot of people kind of, I think, fail to do in terms of patience when they start to implement things. Because I like to say that marketing is part art and part science. And the science part requires experimenting. And so some people will just start to throw something on a campaign, and if it doesn't work, like, oh, it didn't work. And really, that is only half the battle. You have to start, you have to continue, and then you have to learn and optimize as you go. And I think the most successful companies, when they're willing to put in the time and learn from what they do, that what works and what doesn't, then they can adjust and continue to be successful.
Geoffrey, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program. I appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Mike, always enjoy speaking to you. Thanks so much.
To find out more about 9 Dots and all the amazing things that they can do to help your company grow, visit us at dailyadbrief.com. We'll see you next time on Marketing Champions.